Welcome to Cash and Liability Mastery, Part 3, The Effects of Compound Interest. There are certain dynamics to money that you can think of as laws, like the law of gravity. There are some critical concepts, like time, return, and consistency of investing, that are important to understand in order to create wealth for you over time. I love this picture of Albert Einstein, who talks about one of those important laws, which is compound interest. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it, earns it. He who doesn't, pays it. So let's look at its effect on our money. With simple interest, if I invest $100 and earn $5 the first year, $5 is all I'm ever going to earn on that $100. Interest is only computed on the principal. With compound interest, on the other hand, I earn interest on my principal, but I also earn interest on my interest. In this example, it doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it is a critical component in wealth creation, especially when factored with time, return, and consistency. Let's look at compound interest in a very practical example. If you were to say, I want to become a millionaire by the time I retire, what would you need to do? The answer is, it depends. It would depend on your ability and willingness to invest money over time. In part 1, we said you'll have about a 45-year career if you start at 20 and work until 65. If you wanted to save $1 million over that time, it seems like a lot of money. But if you are saving consistently and the money you are saving is earning a return, then you get to benefit from compound interest. $100 a month over a 45-year career would be $54,000. Most people think wealth comes from a lot of money, but if you are disciplined, putting away a little bit of money consistently over time will allow compound interest to work for you. In this example, if you were to make 5% on your return, at the end of 45 years, you'd have $205,000. At 7%, $386,000. At 9%, $760,000. And at 11%, investing only $100 a month. We talked about in part 2, you might be able to find $100 a month by your daily Starbucks consumption. At 11%, that would equal $1.5 million. Historical stock market earnings are between 8 and 10% a year. If you were able to increase your investment to $200 a month over your career, now at 7%, you have $772,000 saved up, and at 9%, you have $1.5 million. If you were able to make 11%, you have $3 million. The key is getting the compounding to work for you over time. There is a rule that can work for you or against you. When you are saving money, it works for you. When you are borrowing money, it works against you. What is it? It's the rule of 72. You take the number 72 and divide it by the rate of return. This equals the time it takes for your investment to double, or on the borrowing end, for your debt to double. If you were to invest at 10% return, your investment would double in 7 years. If you were making a 5% return, it would take 14 years for your investment to double. And if you could actually get a 20% return, it would double in 3.6 years. Over a 45-year career, you could have 6 or 7 doubles. When you're borrowing money, however, say on credit cards, which are generally at that 20% rate, that means your debt is going to double in 3.6 years. There's an expression, if you find yourself in a hole, the first thing you need to do is stop digging. The first million is the hardest. If you are young, you can see how the time you have can really work for you if you are disciplined now. If you are older, you don't have the luxury of time, but perhaps your kids do, and their kids do. That's why financial education is so important. If you're investing $250 at 8%, it's going to take most of your working career to reach that first million, 41.6 years. But look at what happens with the second million. If I continue investing at $250 a month, the second million will come in just 8.5 years. Why is that? Well, the $250 a month is being added to my investment, but that original $1 million is also growing and compounding at 8%. The third million comes in just 5 years. So you can see how time, consistency, and discipline is critical to building wealth. The time to start investing is now. I love this example. Billy learned about compound interest early. So as a young man, without any expenses, he mowed lawns, delivered papers, and he saved. And he invested it. From the time he was 15 until he was 19, he invested $3,000 a year for 5 years. And then he got busy and kind of forgot about that investment, but he left it there. Susan, on the other hand, Susan didn't learn about it until she was 19. But she said, you know what, I understand the power of this. I'm going to buckle down and invest $3,000. And she did that every year for 8 years. Then there's poor Kim. She didn't learn about this until she was 27. But boy, she knuckled down and she invested $3,000 a year every single solitary year until she retired at 65. Now, the crazy thing here is at the end of that, at 65, she had $1.3 million. Well, not bad, but she had invested of her own money $117,000. Susan, who only invested $24,000 of her money, ended up with $1.5 million. And Billy, who had only actually invested $15,000, but he did it early, ended up with $1.6 million. Now, it is important to be consistent. If Billy would have missed just one of those $3,000 payments, it would have reduced his growth by $444,000. Why is this? Well, the important thing is if you look at it the last double. So $100,000 at 10% will grow to $200,000 in 7.2 years, as we learned from the rule of 72. So at 20, you invest $100,000 because you got an inheritance. By the time you're 27, that $100,000 is now $200,000. At 34, you have $400,000. And by the time you're 62, you have $6.4 million, even if you had never invested another penny in here. In Billy's example, he had 6 doubles over his investing period. As we work through this process, there's some more parts to this series, but one thing to remember is that Knife has partnered with Savology. And this can really help you on your journey of figuring out your plan and staying on track. If you would like a free Savology account, or if you have any questions about this presentation, please feel free to contact me. I'd love to hear from you, and I hope to see you for other parts of the series.